In this task, we're going to create the preliminary road to determine our vertical alignment and get some idea of whether or not our slopes will work for the road. So again, this is just a preliminary road. We will fine tune it later on as we make adjustments to our site. So the first thing we'll do is we'll start a new project. So we'll go File, New, and we'll use our project template that we've been using, and we'll bring in some data. Now the first piece of data that we'll bring in will be our site plan. So this is just our 2D schematic layout, so we'll go ahead and bring that in. Now in this particular exercise, again, you could continue where you left off if you've been following along going from chapter to chapter, and you would have your preliminary grading. But what we've done is we provided an XML file of the preliminary grading or preliminary surfaces. So we'll go ahead and just left click or drag and drop in the XML file for our finished ground surface now, and our proposed ground surface. Now when we bring this in, because our template already has a finished design and an original design, and in the len XML file we have identical names, what we want to do is we want to overwrite the existing surface for the first surface, and then we're going to go to the next one. So we'll go ahead and say yes, we want to save that. And we'll do the same thing for the finished design. We want to overwrite that surface. So we'll do that. We'll click import. We'll click yes or OK. And we'll bring in those two surfaces. So those will bring in just the two surfaces of finished design and the original ground. If we look at 3D view, you'll see that we have both the finished design as well as the original ground. Okay. So we'll set those, separate those. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and we'll start with the horizontal alignment. We'll create the alignment. But before we do that, we want to add the vertical to it. So we're going to take this line, which represents our center line, and we're going to elevate it. So I'm going to right click, and I am going to go to Edit, and we're going to edit this line string. So for the first horizontal point, which is right here, what we're going to do is we're going to set the elevation, and we're going to use the existing ground surface. We're going to tie into that surface. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to select from surface snap. My original ground is the surface I want. I'm going to highlight or set focus on point, and I'm going to pick the end point of that line, and therefore it elevates it at our 0 station to match our existing ground. Now the other end, what we want to do is we want to match that to our preliminary grading, which has been sloped out at 2%. And we are going to come down here to the end, and we will go ahead and set that elevation from surface, but we are going to use the finished design. And I'll go ahead and pick this point here. So now we've elevated that, and you can see it's running along our site. So if we do some investigation, we take a look, we can see if we go to our Explorer object and we just pick a point here, we can see that we've got a slope of about 1.5% all the way along that road. Now what we want to do is create a profile. So with the line highlighted, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to select Profile Viewer. So now we can see that line. We're going to right click in here, go to Surfaces, and pick the original ground surface. So now we can see what our 1% slope from our starting point to our ending point looks like. We're going to actually set this a horizontal, so we'll put them side by side, and I'll zoom in on this a little bit. All right, so what we want to do here is we want to add in some vertical elevation points to define our road, okay, our vertical profile. So if we come in down here, we want to kind of match the existing ground. Obviously we can't match it because we got to maintain some minimum slopes as well as some minimum vertical curves. Now our first PVI that we're going to enter is has to have at least a minimum, or we want to tie in at a 2% into the existing tie-in over here. We want to match that road. So what we're going to do is I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to put in I need at least 150 feet of transition into that existing road at that at a 2%. So I'm going to go to vertical. I'm going to put in a vertical PVI, So my first type, I'm going to put a curve type of parabolic, and my minimum curve length is going to be 50. So we'll start with that. As far as the location, instead of elevation, we're going to say we want incoming slope. The distance along the line, we need to be at least 150. So you can see if I'm over here, you can see my stationing. So right down in here, I'm about 150. I need at least 150 at a minimum, so I'm going to type in 150. And my incoming slope is going to be negative 2%. So that puts in a vertical curve, negative 2%, sloping down that in that direction. Okay. Now we want to add some more. We want to kind of come in and take a look to see, you know, what's going on here. So I'm going to work my way down, and we want to make sure at the end we're not hitting anything greater than 5%. So we also want to try to balance this or bring it along this road. So what I'm going to do is I want to put another maybe another point in somewhere in this area. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another PVI. All right, and our minimum will do 50. Where my incoming slope will be able to adjust. So I'm going to come in here again, and let's say we're going to put one in, you know, maybe in this area over in here. So we're going to kind of come down and go back up over this hump and then work our way back down. So we'll go ahead and we'll bring this in, and you know, maybe we put it at right here around this crest. All right, so we'll go ahead and drop one in at about this point right here. Okay, so where it's about at 310, you know, maybe we make it 325 stationing. All right. Now the incoming slope for that is at a minimum can be 1.5%, but let's just go ahead and make that incoming slope of 2%. All right, so we're putting that in, and now we're still coming up. Now our outgoing slope, which will control the next one, we can go ahead and put in a sag. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in another one. Our length for this one, let's say, is going to be 250. All right. So we're going to put that distance in, and we're going to pick that somewhere in the area of somewhere in here. So we want this to kind of come down into here. So we're going to kind of pick that area. Let's make it right around, let's say 850. We'll go about halfway. So somewhere in here. Now our incoming slope for that, let's say at a minimum can be 150. So let's go incoming slope of negative 150. And we'll save that. So you can see that drops it in and puts it right about in there. So we know we can't go any lower than that. If we hit cancel for a second, we can see our outgoing slope is at 3.35, which is pretty good. We're not greater than 5. We could leave it that way. Maybe we want to add in one more. So let's go back up and add another PVI. Let's go 250 again for the length, and let's put that one in somewhere, let's say in here. So we'll put that in at around 15, and our incoming slope for that, let's say we want that to be at a 2%. We'll hit save. So now by doing that, we've lowered that a little bit so that we can account for some of this cut and fill. But we can see that by doing that at that location, that our outgoing slope is 5.21. All right, so if we change our incoming slope, maybe we make it a little bit less, like maybe 1.5. You can see that made it worse. So let's bump it up to 3.5. So by bumping up to 3.5, you can see we've raised it up probably too much. It's okay on our slopes, but let's go ahead and make it 3. So we're dropping it down a little bit more. We could probably even go to 2.5, and that actually works a little bit better. So we want to bring it down, so we don't want to go too high, because we want to try to, you know, balance out our road grades. Now we can do that along here and adjust some of these other ones, but what we've done here is basically created a vertical profile of our road. We know we've got some minimum slopes. Again, this is preliminary, so our first pass, this is probably good. So now that we've got that 3D line string, we can go ahead and close this. We can go to our corridor. We can create an alignment, and we can call this main road. We're going to put it on a layer which will be our corridor layer. Now we don't have a corridor layer, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new one, and we're going to call it cor-centerline. We'll go ahead and make this red, and we'll protect it, and what we'll do is we'll put it on our design category. Click OK to that. We're going to use the existing line string, and we'll click OK. So what you have now is we've got a horizontal alignment and a vertical profile, or vertical alignment. It's got our slopes and all our curve data in there. So we can go ahead and close this down. The next step, and we'll show that in the next video, is to how to actually build the corridor.